welcome to a new episode. I'm Sara Tåtegeter, one of the co-founders of Globedesk, and with me today I have Emma Smedlund, engineering manager and coach. And we are going to talk about how leaders and companies can support mental health. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me again. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yes,
Good to be here.
this is the second time we have you as a guest, so yeah, very pleased about that. For new listeners, could you please share a bit about your background?
Yes, so as you mentioned, I work as an engineering manager. Have been doing that for the past around 7 years. And prior to that, I started out in the tech industry as a developer, actually a front-end developer. So I got a degree in front-end and also worked mainly with React for 2 years. Prior to that, I also have a background as a manager in a different industry. And on the side of my engineering manager gigs, as you said, I'm also a coach. So, for example, I do career coaching and work with agile teams to work better together.
Super interesting. And you're a perfect fit for the subject that we are talking about today. So one thing we often hear is that leaders should lead by example. And what does that look like when it comes to mental health?
Yeah, so important to reflect on that. So from my perspective, leading by example starts with how you as a manager manage your own mental health. Because as we know, people don't necessarily do what managers say as much as they do what managers do. So I invite people to start by modeling healthy work-life boundaries, for example, by using separate devices for work and personal use to truly be able to disconnect after office hours. Using scheduling features for emails and messages if you work outside of office hours. And also take your vacation. Sometimes I notice that some managers don't take vacation and that they take some pride in that, but you need your rest as well. And again, it's about modeling an example for your employees who also need their rest. So take your vacation and really disconnect when you do.
Okay, yeah.
Another thing,
Oh, sorry.
if I
Yes.
can continue, it's just also important to reflect on how you can develop your own mental wealth or mental well-being practices. So personally, for example, I never recommend something that I don't practice myself. So whether it's seeing a therapist or a coach, practicing presence, moving your body, or doing meaningful work, it's about knowing what you need to stay mentally balanced, knowing your needs and honoring them.
Yeah, perfect. I like the idea about also that you said like scheduling messages and emails, because sometimes you have to work outside work hours, but you can still schedule so the receiver gets it during their work
Yes,
hours. Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
What would you say is one small but impactful change managers can make to improve team well-being?
So in this ever-changing industry, I would invite leaders to really grab the opportunity to cultivate mental well-being by offering a sense of stability. A very powerful way to do that is just setting clear goals for the short term, so 3 to 6 months, because planning too far ahead in tech isn't helpful. Don't make promises you can't keep, basically. Another thing is something that I talk about a lot is normalizing change, because suffering often comes when we resist change or when we expect things to be permanent when they are really not. Not so much from the change itself. So that is something to really think about. And also, like, when people get overwhelmed about things that are going on around them, try to like help your team or people focus on what's in their control, like right here, right now, and zoom in on that. That way, you reduce some of that noise that is like going on around you. And another thing that we can do as managers to sort of improve well-being, it's also something that I usually remind my teams of, is that to measure their efforts not in the number of hours that they put in, but whether they deliver what was expected of them. And that I find reduces stress and creates a more sustainable way of working. It's also a shift in mindset, like from performance to results.
Yeah, that is really good. And it's more rewarding as well for the
Yes,
team members.
definitely.
So how can team managers create an environment where employees feel safe to speak up about stress without fear of judgment or career consequences?
So important as well. So psychological safety, from my perspective, starts with normalizing the full human experience. So as a leader, I talk openly about my own capacity. For example, that I am a highly sensitive person, and that open like plan offices drain me, for example. So for me, it's super helpful that I am able to balance working from home with working from the office. And I also like try to weave well-being into daily conversations. So, for example, this morning I asked my team, "How's your energy levels today?" And I also shared my own. And a simple icebreaker I used recently was, "What helps you reset during a stressful day?" I used this in a retro, and that also like opened up space for vulnerability. But what matters most, I find, is how I respond when someone shares something difficult. So if someone says that they are stressed or overwhelmed, my response is not, "Okay, but can you still deliver?" But rather, "Thank you for sharing that. What do you need right now? And how can I best support you?" Because that's how we build psychological safety. It's moment by moment, like not overnight.
Yeah, very true. Oh, thank you so much. And from a team perspective, what's one common behavior or norm in tech culture that should be challenged because it negatively affects well-being?
Yeah, there are a few, but one that I would really challenge is the glorification of like constant availability. The idea that being always responsive is equal to being dedicated. And that's not helpful because it kills deep focus, it creates like silent pressure on people and leads to burnout. Like I've seen amazing developers crash, not necessarily from workload, but from like never mentally switching off.
Yeah.
And one thing I do is I coach team members to like kindly direct stakeholders who DM them to like a public channel. And not just for visibility, it's also a way to like spread the workload ensure the right person responds, because sometimes it might be someone else that has the competence to answer. And it also like avoids bottlenecks if that key person is, becomes sick or goes on vacation. So anything we can do to avoid shadow work or like key person dependencies and context switching is helpful for well-being, I would say.
Oh, yeah, super good. So, Emma, from your experience as an engineering manager, what kind of support actually makes a difference for developers' well-being?
Yeah, so in this industry we have a lot of like benefits and perks, which is great, but what people really remember are the sort of micro moments of, did their manager check in when they were struggling? Did the team slow down after a tough sprint or a big delivery? And like every now and then I check in using a 1 to 5 scale of how people are doing, and always follow up with, okay, but what would move you from a 2 to a 3, for example? I find that that small shift creates room for honest conversations. Um, and I mean, there are several things. Something else that I do is to encourage my teams to decline meetings where like there is no clear goal or agenda, or where it is unclear why they have been invited. And this is about protecting their time and energy and focus, which in itself is an important part of mental health. It's perfectly okay to ask, the organizer, what is expected of me in this meeting, and just say no if you feel that you can't contribute. Okay.
Have you seen or introduced any team level practices that have had a real impact on well-being or work-life balance?
For me, it's like a simple but like powerful practice of implementing working agreements. They are so powerful when people get to sort of co-create and agree on their own sort of rules for collaboration, and letting the team do that with your guidance, of course, if necessary. But as a team, let them decide their own guidelines for office hours, meeting availability, response expectations, and like out of office messages. For example, sometimes team decides that Wednesday is a meeting free day for like deep work focus. And this really improves well-being and productivity. And it also builds, ownership and clarity and emotional safety. So working agreements, I would say, is a great practice, and important to, of course, iterate over them regularly. So don't just create one and think that you're done. You need to sort of review them like every 3 months.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk a little bit about remote work as well, because in that area we have, the same challenges, but also a bit different. Remote work is praised for its flexibility, but it can also lead to overwork since you don't leave your work. How can companies prevent burnout without micromanaging?
So I invite managers to lead by example again. So set and communicate clear office hours. Whether you do that together with the team in their working agreement, or if you have mandate over them, but make sure that the office hours are clear to everyone. And again, don't message outside of them. And if you need to, then use the scheduling function. Or clarify that you don't expect a response immediately. When I see someone working late on a weekend or late at night to resolve an incident, I of course thank them for that, and also make sure that they take time off to recover, like leaving early on a Friday.
Yeah.
And when I see someone working late or on a weekend for any other reason, then I have a conversation with them about what I expect from them, which is not to work outside of office hours, and what is the motivating factor behind that from their perspective. Why do they do that? And try to find a more sustainable solution. Perhaps they enjoy their work, okay, but how can we make sure that you're more satisfied during your office hours, for example? And important note.
Yeah, super good advice. What's one of the most innovative ways you have seen companies keep remote employees mentally engaged and happy?
Also very important to reflect on. I'm not sure about innovative, but effective. And one powerful thing I've seen is, just creating space for reflection. So, for example, retrospectives that include a well-being check-in, that you really make time for that, and team rituals like gratitude rounds or intention setting at the start of the week, and sort of planning your sprint by the capacity of the team. For example, if you work with software development teams. But one thing that I think is really important in the remote work discussion is acknowledging that like different people, roles, and companies have very different needs, and that's okay. There is no one size fits all. Like some people thrive in the office, some at home, and many in a mix. And what truly matters is that both companies and individuals take time to reflect on what actually works for them. So, as a company, I invite you to be honest about the kind of culture you want to build and create a policy that fits your business and your values, and communicate it clearly to both your employees and candidates in your hiring process. And as an individual, reflect on what you need to feel well and to perform well, and advocate for that. And because when both parties are clear and open, everyone can find the right match. And that is like when the true well-being magic happens. I also think it's important to look critically at reports and studies around remote work. There's so much data being shared, but we rarely ask, who conducted this study, what were their intentions or incentives, and who benefits from sharing this particular narrative. We need to, I think, stay grounded and nuanced. It's not about whether remote work is good or bad. It's about what works best for you and for your context.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, you always need to have like critical thinking. Super interesting. It has been a pleasure to have you with us again. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining us. And if you, as a listener, found this interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting interviews. So until next time.
All right. Thank you so much for having me again.